So, this time last year I benched 120 kg, which at the time was over the moon with, despite losing my calf. Since then, I took a break from lifting heavy and I've been dumbbell benching more frequently as I just didn't have a spotter, so this is all I could really do. Because of this, my bench press fell back a little bit and I've been playing catch up ever since, spending the last year trying to regain and even break through my previous PR. So I want to talk about some of the best ways to break through a bench plateau, in my personal opinion. Obviously with any compound lift, form is really important, and the main thing I want to talk about is form. So I'm going to talk about arching, foot placement, bar path, and wrists or hand placement. I do think it's important to have a good arch if you want to move a lot of weight. To shorten the range of motion, just don't go overboard with it, and remember that the new kind of rules are that you have to have your elbows kind of parallel or below parallel, almost similar to the squat. From this point, you want to bring the bar down to the highest peak of your arch, or the highest point of your body, which is kind of usually the lowest part of your chest. A lot of people make the mistake of lifting their butt off the bench during this, which wouldn't count as a rep, so try to keep focus on having your butt and your shoulder blades down on the bench and your arch up. It will be easier to get this kind of format if your spotter gives you a lift off with the bench and keep your shoulder blades down on the bench while they do that. In terms of foot placement, some federations don't allow the heel to be off the floor, while others do. For your own PRs, it doesn't really matter which way you prefer, and both are perfectly viable. However, for me personally, I've always thought that you want to drive your heel into the floor to get more leg drive, and that's just always been easy for me with a flat foot, so I bench flat-footed. Like I say, you want to focus on driving your heel into the floor, and you want to have your feet quite far back to get more leg drive. If you struggle with flexibility and you can't get your feet back, you should try pointing your feet outwards. This has really helped me get my feet further back while staying flat-footed and not having to be forced to lift my heel off the floor, which is kind of uncomfortable for me, and also sometimes leads to my calves cramping. The bar path is also really important. It should move up and backwards simultaneously, not straight up, not forward, and not back then up. In this demonstration video, you can see my kind of bar path here, which there are so many apps on the App Store. If you just search for bar path, and you can analyze your own bar path on all of your lifts and try and get it to be shaped like this, which is going backwards and up. This kind of bar path is important for the bench press because it helps engage your shoulders, and also it helps your leg drive be more efficient because you are pushing the bar back and upwards towards the rack with your chest, your shoulders and your legs, which obviously the bench press is a compound lift, so being able to engage all of these muscle groups together is going to help you get a lot more force. In terms of hand placements, there's also rules on how wide you're allowed to hold the bar. Personally, I like a wide grip, as wide as is legally possible, because this reduces the range of motion. This does take time to adapt to if you're new to a wide grip, if you bench narrow normally, but going wide is really going to help you and benefit you in the long run, because I used to start with a really narrow grip, and when I widened it, it felt uncomfortable, but the longer you get used to it, the better it actually feels. The widest legal grip is usually kind of the index finger being on the ring of the barbell. For me personally, I have my middle finger on the ring, so it's not much shorter than the maximum. Also, you want to keep your wrists tight, and you don't want to bend them, because this is going to be kind of like a power leak. If you have bent wrists, you're going to be more likely to be injured, and you're not going to be able to get as much power on the push. So to generate more force and to avoid injury, I try and keep them straight, and sometimes when I'm going for PRs, I use wrist straps. I think they're a great tool. Not necessary for everyone, but I find them quite helpful. Also sometimes, like in the footage you can see, I use elbow sleeves, which are again just kind of a personal preference to prevent injury, and because I think it helps me get a little more force on lockout. So these are tools that you can kind of use to help get more weight on the bar, just basic equipment like that. Beyond perfecting form, I wanted to talk about two methods I've implemented to increase my PR. The first and most important thing is frequency. When it comes to powerlifting and increasing weight on compound lifts, assistant movements can be useful, but the most important principle to abide by is the principle of specificity. Put simply, the more you want to perfect the bench press, the more you should do the actual bench press. Dumbbell press is a great exercise, but subbing it for the barbell press is what made me lose strength initially. So rather than adding a load of secondary compound lifts to your training plan and making it really convoluted, just add another bench day. Personally, I bench 3 days a week. These sessions should be heavy. Don't go light because you know you've got another session coming up later in the week. You want to make sure that you are doing these sessions heavy. I usually do it in the 3 to 6 rep range. People might disagree on that, have different weights that they like to do. Obviously, occasionally I might go for a max, occasionally I might do some higher rep work, but 90% of the time I'm working in that 3 to 6 rep range. Sometimes on the third day I will opt for a kind of narrow bench, which will be a little bit lighter because I can't handle as much weight on a narrow bench. But I do think this is also important to gain tricep strength, because tricep strength is so important for locking out and breaking through plateaus. But whichever variation of the bench that I'm doing, I will do it 3 days a week. And I think that the most standard, normal, wide grip bench press that you're trying to increase the weight on, this is what you should be doing the most often. Linking into this, my final point sounds somewhat contradictory because it's to use secondary lifts effectively. I know I was just saying that it's important to abide by the principle of specificity and do the bench press, but of course, let's be real, you're going to be doing other training around your big three lifts. You will be training the triceps, your chest, your shoulders. So when you're training these, you want to make sure that the training that you're doing is actually going to benefit the bench press as well. You want to be doing strength work for your triceps, because strong triceps are important to break through the plateaus like we discussed. So this is kind of weighted dips that will be helpful. The narrow bench, like I said before, and heavy skull crushes. All kinds of things that are going to increase strength in your triceps, which will carry over to your bench press. Secondly, with these secondary lifts, what's important is kind of hypertrophic training. Hypertrophy is going to be so important because the more muscle mass that you have, the more muscle fiber you have, the more weight you can move. It's as simple as that. So if you can afford to gain more weight, eating more, eating in a calorie surplus, lifting, going to training to failure in the muscle group should stimulate hypertrophy, grow the muscle, and then you can lift more weight. I understand that some people can't gain weight because they have to stick by weight limits, or they might be cutting, and that's fine. If you can't gain weight, you can still gain strength at the same weight. You can even lose weight and gain strength, it's possible. But at the end of the day, gaining more weight will definitely be beneficial because you will have more muscle fibers to recruit in the movement. So implementing all of these factors into my training for the past few months, I've managed to add 5 kg to my bench press. So I have a new PR of 125 kg. I've also been able to rep 120 kg for 2 reps, failing on that third rep. I've also drastically improved in my dumbbell bench, going from a few reps of 40 kg last year to actually 4 reps of 50 kg this year, which is quite a big increase. However, moving forward, I still feel like I have a lot of strength to gain left from this training method. I feel like I'm only just beginning. I want to hit 130 kg and I want to get that third rep of 120 kg in the future. Try implementing these training strips into your bench training if you don't already use them. And if you do, let me know what you think. Maybe you disagree, let me know that too. Just let me know what you think in the comments. And thanks for watching.